Hey everyone, welcome to the One Code Camp channel. So today, we're diving into the world of React and exploring a powerful concept, which is the conditional rendering. So, did you ever wanted to control what content your React app displays based on certain conditions? Well, that's exactly what conditional rendering allows you to do. So it's like having a magic switch that contains or controls what your users see, making your applications more dynamic and interactive. So in this video, we'll break down the what is conditional rendering, why is it crucial in React, the how. So we'll explore the different ways to implement conditional rendering, including the if statement, the ternary operator, and then the logical and operator. And then lastly, the wow. So we'll see how conditional rendering unlocks powerful possibilities for creating dynamic and interactive user interfaces. So buckle up and get ready to unlock the power of conditional rendering in your React application projects. So let's get started.
Now, one essential concept that you'll encounter often in ReactJS is the conditional rendering. It's all about making parts of your user interface appear or disappear based on certain conditions. Okay, so what is conditional rendering? Imagine you have a website and you want to show a login button if a user is not logged in or a message if the user is lagged up. So conditional rendering allows you to dynamically decide what to display based on the state of your application. Okay, so it is the technique that allows you to make these decisions in React. It lets you control which parts of your application, like buttons, pictures, messages, or texts, show up on the screen, depending again on certain conditions. So the React uses JavaScript to control what appears on the screen. We can write the code that says, if something is true, then show this element. Otherwise, show something else. So there are a few ways to do conditional rendering in React, but they all work in a similar way. That is checking a condition and then showing something different based on whether that condition is true or false. So this makes your React applications more dynamic and interesting because they can change what they show you depending on what's going on. So why do we need conditional rendering? In a web application, the content you want to show often depends on the current state of your application or the data that you have. So conditional rendering helps you control what gets displayed to the user, creating a more dynamic and personalized user experience. So some of the common ways to use conditional rendering is, first one, showing different greetings. So we can welcome back a logged in user with a personalized message or greet new visitors with a general message. The second one would be displaying loading screens. So, for example, while the data is loading from the internet, we can show a loading message instead of an empty page. And last one would be toggling content. So, example, we have a button that shows or hides a specific section of the website. So as mentioned, there are a few ways to achieve conditional rendering in React, but we'll focus on these most common approaches. So one common way is using an if statement. So for example, let's create a component for our if statement first. Let's create a new file inside this components folder, and let's name this render underscore if.js. And then now let's import the React library and then the useState hook from React. Say import React, then the useState from React. And then from here, let's define a functional component. Say function render, underscore if, that takes props as an argument. So let's put inside this parenthesis the props and then followed by curly braces. The next, let's have this code.
Yeah, vacuum boy.
Okay, there's a missing equal sign here. And then let's have our if statement right here. So if the user is logged in, let's display welcome back user. Else, let's display hello visitor. And again, we're missing an equal sign right here. Okay, and then after this, let's have our return statement. So this will return the JSX or the React elements representing the component's user interface. Have our button right here. Then on click. Then let's have a heading here. Then let's have an H3 right here. Say the message. And then don't forget to export our export default render. Okay, so basically we first imported we import the React library and then the useState hook, which is a feature in React for handling state in functional components. And then this line, this imports a React and then a specific function called useState from the React library. And then since the React is the library we're using to build our user interface, and the useState is a function provided by React that allows us to add state to functional components. And then next we defined a functional component called renderIf. So this line, this declares a piece of state called isLoggedIn and a function called setIsLoggedIn to update the state. So we're using the useState hook here to add state to a functional component in React. And initially, this is logged in is set to true, indicating that the user is logged in. And then we define a function handle click that toggles the value of is logged in when the button is clicked. Okay, so again, this line, this just defines a function called handle click. So when the button is clicked, the function is called. It uses the set is logged in to toggle the value of is logged in. So if is logged in is true, it becomes false and vice versa. So this function is connected to the button's onClick event, meaning it will be triggered when the button is clicked. And then after that is we will use an if statement to check the value of is logged in and determine the message to be displayed. We also have here the variable let message. So this is, we're declaring this variable outside of JSX because we're going to use it to conditionally render different messages. And then here, this if statement right here, it checks whether the is logged in state is true or false. So if the is logged in is true, it means that the user is logged in. So we set the message to welcome back user. But if the is logged in is false, it means that the user is not logged in. So we will set the message to hello visitor. And then lastly, we have here our JSX React elements and then which is the return statement. So this is the return statement of our component. It returns JSX, which represents the structure of our user interface. Okay, so the first one that you will see here is the button. So this line creates the button element. Every time this is clicked, it will trigger or it triggers the handle click function right here, which we defined earlier here. So the text inside the button changes dynamically based on the values of the is logged in variable. So again, if the is logged in is true, it will show log out. Otherwise, it will show logged in. So we can add that here. Let's say is logged in, log out, and then log in. So this is an example of a ternary operator that we will be explaining more or delve more later on after this. Okay, and then next is this H3 message right here. So the H3 message, this will just display the message variable that we defined earlier, which changes every time or based on whether the user is logged in or logged out. So lastly, we export the render if component to make it available for use in other parts of the application. So now what we have to do is we have to update our app.js file. Again, import render if, and then let's call it here inside our return statement. Render if. And let's click save. Oops. Let's put this inside our button element. So as you can see, we have here our logged out button. So when you click this log out, it will display hello visitor. So here you can see that it shows logged out because the user is currently logged in. And since it's currently logged in, it will display welcome back user. So for example, the user is logged out, it will display hello visitor, and it will display login in our button. Okay, so basically, this component represents a simple toggle button that changes the displayed message based on whether the user is logged in or not. So the code introduces concepts like this, the state management, event handling, and conditional rendering in a beginner-friendly manner. Okay, next is the ternary operator. So the ternary operator, this is the other way to show different things in our React websites based on conditions. So think of the ternary operator as a shorthand way of writing an if statement. It's like a mini decision maker packed into one line of code. So similar to the if example, we'll need a place to write our code and a variable to track whether the user is logged in or not. Okay, so let's first create a file for our ternary operator. So create a new file inside your components folder, and then let's name it render_ternary.js. Okay, so the ternary operator is separated by a question mark and a colon. So the basic syntax for the ternary operator is condition followed by a question mark, and the next is expression if true followed by a colon, and the next is expression if false. Okay, so it checks the condition and shows either the expression if true, or the expression if false, if false. Now let's transform our code earlier using the ternary operator. Let's import first the React and then the useState from React. Next is function render_ternary. Let's have the props right here, and then const, same as a while ago. Say here false. And then here, let's have const message is equal to is logged in, then question mark, followed by our first expression, which is the expression that will run if this condition is true. So welcome back, user. And then let's have here using ternary operator. The next is followed by the colon, and then the second expression, which will run if the condition is false. So that would be hello visitor. And then let's have here using ternary operator. Okay, and then let's have our return statement. Show the button on click. Oops. The handle click. And then let's have here the condition is logged in. And after that, let's have here a heading 3 that will display the message. Then lastly, export default and then render ternary. So here, there will be no changes that will be made here at the very top. So we still use the use state to create the isLoggedIn state variable. And then the handle click function remains the same. It still toggles the value of isLoggedIn when the button is clicked. So right here, this code block, this is the conditional rendering with ternary operator. So instead of using the or an if statement to determine the value of the message variable, we are now using the ternary operator. So the ternary operator checks if isLoggedIn is true, and it sets the message to welcome back user, and then using the ternary operator, otherwise it sets the message to hello visitor using the ternary operator. Okay, and then we have here our JSX structure. It remains the same, including the button and then the H3 element, and then as well as exporting the component. So there will be no change in exporting the render ternary component except for the component name. Okay, so let's import this inside our app.js file. So import render underscore ternary, and then let's call it here render ternary. We can also add a line break here and then an H1, say ReactJS Conditional Rendering. Then let's have an H4, so if statement, and then another H4, a ternary operator. Okay, so let's see it here in our browser. So you can see, since the use state or the state of isLoggedIn set to false, the user is currently logged out. That's why the button displays logged in and the message displays hello visitor using ternary operator. So when you click this login button, it will change to log out, and then it will display welcome back user using the ternary operator. Okay, so in summary, we replaced the if statement right here with a ternary operator to achieve the same conditional rendering effect. So the ternary operator, this is a concise way of expressing simple conditions in React components. And remember that the ternary operator is like a condensed if statement. So it lets you make quick decisions about what to show based on a condition. It helps make the code shorter and more readable. And lastly, we have the AND operator. So the AND operator, it lets you display something only if a certain condition is true. So it's like a safety gate. Only if something is true will the content after the AND will be shown. So let's create a simple example where we will use our AND operator for conditional rendering. Let's create a new file inside our components folder and name it render underscore end.js. So here, let's create a different example. Let's say we want to display a checkout message or a login message based on whether the user is logged in and has items in their cart. So let's have the import statement first. Then the use state. Let's add here the use state. Next, the function render underscore end, and then let's have is logged in and the items in cart are theirs, and then let's not forget to put this inside curly braces. And then next, let's use the use state to track whether the checkout button is clicked. So const button is clicked, set button clicked is equals to use state, and then let's set it to false. Now let's create a function to handle the checkout button click. Const handle click or handle checkout click. Let's use an arrow function, and then let's set button click to true.
Oh,
Now let's have our return statement. Let's have first our button on click is equal to handle check out click, and then let's display here. And then let's display here checkout. And then after that, let's conditionally render the message only if the checkout button is clicked. So we'll have button clicked, button is clicked, and which is our AND operator. Let's have the div to act as our container, and then let's have here is logged in, and items in cart is less than 0. Let's have a paragraph element here and display ready to check out. So we're using the ternary operator right here, and then followed by a colon, and then a parenthesis again. Let's have a p element. Please log in to proceed with your purchase. And then lastly, let's export our component. Render end. Okay, so what we did here, we use the useState hook to create a state variable button is clicked to track whether the checkout button has been clicked. And then we also added the handle checkout click function that sets the button click to true when the checkout button is clicked. So the handle checkout click function is triggered when the checkout button is clicked, setting the button click to true. And then the JSX return statement right here, this is for the checkout button, includes the on-click event again that calls the, in this case, the handle checkout click function. And then here, this is where we use the AND operator to conditionally render the block of JSX only if the button is clicked to true. So within the conditional rendering block, we use the AND operator again to conditionally render either the ready to check out message or the please log in to proceed with your purchase message based on the values of is logged in and items in cart. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to update our app.js file. So let's import again, render underscore end, and then we have to declare a variable, let's say const is logged in is equals to true. So this will simulate or simulating the user being logged in. And then another variable, items in cart, to let's say 3. So this will simulate the number of items in the cart. Okay, and the next is the, let's have the h4, say AND operator. And then let's call our component render underscore end. And then let's set that is logged in. And then items in cart. Let's call it here. Then the closing tag. Okay, so as you can see, we now have here the checkout button. So if you click on the checkout button, it will display ready to checkout. Oops. There you go. It will display ready to checkout. And then if you click or if you set the is logged in to false here inside our app.js, it will display please log in to proceed with your purchase. Okay, So when you open your browser, you'll see a checkout button, right? So clicking the button will reveal the appropriate message based on the user status and the number of items in the cart. So basically, this is what a ReactJS conditional rendering is. So we've successfully enhanced the example to include a checkout button and a conditional statement or messages based on the button click, user status, and items in the cart. So these are the most common ReactJS conditional rendering operators. Again, conditional rendering, this is a powerful tool that allows you to control what your users see based on conditions in your applications. So as you continue your journey in React, you'll find yourself using this concept quite often. And I hope this gives you a good starting point for understanding React's conditional rendering. So don't worry if it feels a bit tricky at first. Since with a bit of practice, you'll understand the conditional rendering here in React.js in no time.